Every person alive today is the child of someone who left, a grandmother who crossed a desert, a fisherman who followed the tide, a girl who walked out of Africa 2,800 generations ago. For most of our history, there were so few of us you could have fit the entire human race into a football stadium. And yet, we spread across every continent. We shaped the land, painted the walls, hunted giants into silence. We built stories to remember the stars. And slowly, we became a species that could change the world. Today, we live in towers, scroll through strangers, move not across rivers, but through data. But somewhere on this long road, as our numbers swelled and our pace quickened, we lost something, the story that bound us. This episode is about that journey. From migration to settlement, from exponential growth to the edge of collapse. And we ask, what happens when a species built to move stands still?
"70,000 years ago, a small group of humans, perhaps no more than 500 souls, walked out of Africa. They did not know they were carrying the future. At that moment, our species was on the edge. The world had seen at least 8 other human kinds. Neanderthals in Europe, Denisovans in Asia, Homo erectus still clinging to life in Indonesia. But we, Homo sapiens, were different. We had lighter bones, more advanced tools, and something else, the ability to tell stories and believe them.
That still amazes me. Our ancestors weren't the strongest or the fastest. So was it really storytelling that made the difference?
Stories allowed small groups to cooperate in ways no other species could. They bound us together through memory, ritual, and imagination.
And we can actually trace that journey now, not through flags or legends, but in our genes. In the mitochondrial DNA passed from mother to child, generation after generation. And what it tells us is profound. We are all African. Every single person alive today descends from ancestors who lived, loved, and lost somewhere on that vast, ancient continent. Not from one single place, but many. The human family was shaped across the savannas of East Africa, the forests of Central Africa, the deserts of the north, and the coasts of the south.
And when we left, we carried all of it with us. They followed shorelines, river deltas, and game trails. They made boats from hollowed logs, bone-tipped spears, ochre paint for skin and walls. They followed the arc of the moon, the migrations of birds, the stars etched across the night sky. Stars we still see today, and slowly, like water through stone, they spread. Across the Sinai Peninsula into Arabia, along the coasts of India, where their tools still lie buried in sand, through Southeast Asia into China, and by 65,000 years ago into Australia, one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth, with songlines that still trace that journey in living memory.
And eventually, some even crossed a frozen land bridge from Siberia into the Americas, perhaps chasing herds or fleeing conflict, or simply because the horizon kept calling. By the time the last ice age ended, humans had touched every habitable continent on Earth. And yet, we were still so few. For tens of thousands of years, the global human population hovered below 1 million. That's fewer people than live in modern San Francisco. For nearly all of our history, we were rare.
Rare, but not harmless. Wherever we went, extinctions followed. The woolly mammoth across the northern hemisphere, Diprotodon, the giant wombat, and Proctoptodon, the short-faced kangaroo, across Australia, and the giant ground sloth in South America, to name just a few. Across continents, the great megafauna fell silent, not overnight, but steadily, like a slow forgetting of what the Earth once held. Some of that was climate, but some was us. Armed with fire, coordination, and memory, we could outthink any predator. And when we hunted in groups, with traps and tools, no animal stood a chance.
And yet, for all our destruction, we also created. The first cave art dates back nearly 45,000 years. Handprints in Indonesia, bison in Spain, lion-headed figures in Germany. We told stories in pigments, in firelight, in chants passed from mouth to mouth. We sang our belonging into the world before we built anything to mark it.
And it wasn't a single exodus. It was a pulse, a trickle of children, mothers, elders, hunters, driven by need, by wonder, and sometimes by violence. We didn't always migrate peacefully. Conflicts over water, over hunting grounds, or fear of the unknown drove people forward, sometimes away from others, sometimes into them. Some of those we met, like the Neanderthals, we absorbed. Their DNA still lives in our blood. Others we displaced, or outlasted.
So even here, at the very beginning, humanity was experimenting with conflict and cooperation, with kinship and difference. It wasn't one straight path. It was choices, negotiations, even possibilities.
Yes, and that's the first paradox of humanity. Fragile, small, vulnerable to drought and tooth and storm, and yet already shaping the planet. Not through brute force, but through coordination. Not with empires, but with memory. We were a species becoming, and the story had only just begun.
Live, little son. Stay with us.
To understand how movement became civilization, we have to stop walking and start planting.
So, the Ice Age ends, and suddenly the world looks different. The rains return. The rivers swell. For the first time in tens of thousands of years, the land is not just something to move across, it becomes something that can be shaped, returned to.
The Great Migration's slow, the pulse of movement finds pauses, places to linger. As ice retreats, it leaves behind corridors of fertile earth, places where footsteps circle rather than continue. I picture a woman bending down to press a seed into the soil, not knowing she's about to change the direction of history.
Exactly. That seed was wild wheat, once just another grass on the open steppe. But when it sprouted, she stayed. She protected it. And that was the turning point. The moment humans began to plant, not just gather, was the moment we grew roots in the soil and in ourselves. And what began as survival would soon be remembered as destiny, wrapped in stories of earth mothers and harvest gods. But crops can't migrate, which meant neither could we.
So this is the beginning of agriculture and of hierarchy. The old story is that farming inevitably led to kings, armies, and inequality.
That's the textbook version, yes. But archaeology is showing something much richer. For thousands of years, people farmed without kings. Cities thrived without palaces. In some places, power was spread out, shared in assemblies, even rotated seasonally. Civilization wasn't one inevitable line, it was an experiment.
Like what kinds of experiments?
Take the Indus Valley. Cities like Mohenjo-Daro had wide streets, sewage systems, even standardized weights for trade. But no palaces, no royal tombs, or the vast ring-shaped settlements near the Black Sea. Tens of thousands living in circular neighborhoods with no single ruler. And later, in Mesoamerica, Teotihuacan, a city of 250,000 people, where pyramids stood among thousands of nearly identical villas, suggesting something closer to urban equality than empire.
That's incredible. So, agriculture didn't force hierarchy. It opened up possibilities.
Exactly. Some societies chose hierarchy, others chose councils, still others blended the two. Inequality wasn't a destiny, it was a decision.
But farming still changed everything. Timing became critical. Planting too early meant frost, too late meant famine. That must have pushed people to start watching the skies.
Yes, they became the first astronomers. Not for gods at first, but for patterns. Which star rose before the floods, which constellation signaled the rains. Elders who had lived long enough to see the sky repeat itself wove these truths into myth so a child could remember them without needing the math. And these myths were passed down through the generations, practical at first, but soon sacred.
And those who read the sky gained authority.
They did. But again, authority wasn't uniform. In some places, it crystallized into priesthoods, calendars, taxation, control. In others, it was more distributed, woven into councils and rituals. Humans were testing the balance between freedom and order, resilience and abundance.
So civilization wasn't a single invention. It was 1,000 prototypes.
Beautifully put. We irrigated rivers, cleared forests, stacked stones into monuments. We wrote the first records, not poetry or prayers, but grain receipts, tallies, debts. Yet even tallies became charged with meaning, clay ledgers turning into law and law into legend. Villages became cities, Uruk, Jericho, Mohenjo-Daro. Populations clustered, aligned to the stars.
And yet it came at a cost. The bones tell us farmers were shorter, more diseased, more overworked than their forager ancestors.
Yes, farming gave abundance, but often at the expense of health, freedom, and equality. And where food could be stored, it could be controlled. That control became a lever for power.
But not everywhere, not always.
Right, and that's the key. Our ancestors weren't locked into one path. They experimented with hierarchy, with cooperation, with different visions of order. That means the way the world looks today is not the only way it has to be.
Which makes this chapter of the story less about inevitability and more about choice.
Precisely. Humanity was no longer simply moving with the world, we were beginning to redesign it.
For most of human history, growth was slow, limited by land, labor, and the seasons. Then, within just a few generations, everything began to multiply, not by accident, but by design. Human history does not move at a constant speed. For thousands of years, change crept forward, then suddenly it learned how to run.
Then came the Great Surge. The Industrial Revolution wasn't just about machines. It was a new metabolism, a new way for humanity to consume energy.
Metabolism? You mean like the body's metabolism, but for society?
Exactly. At its heart was a single discovery. When water is heated into steam, it expands by more than 1,700 times. That expansion could drive pistons, turn wheels, power engines.
But to boil water, you need fire, and fire meant fuel, coal, oil, gas. Suddenly, centuries of ancient sunlight trapped in fossilized trees, and plankton were being unleashed in decades.
To grasp the scale, a single barrel of oil, about 159 liters, holds the equivalent energy of more than 5 years of human labor. It can release over 2,000 horsepower hours. For the first time, that power could be harnessed at will.
So one engine could replace the work of 100 horses, even thousands of people. No wonder factories ran day and night, mines dug deeper, cities exploded almost overnight.
But this revolution wasn't only about energy, it was about life itself and how long we got to live it. Until the 1800s, average life expectancy in most places was about 35 years. Disease, poor sanitation, and infant mortality kept death close. Then came the sanitation revolution.
London, 1854, a cholera outbreak. Thousands dead. And one doctor, John Snow, mapping the cases until they clustered around a single water pump. He removed the handle. The deaths stopped. That was one of the first times in history that data saved lives.
Exactly. From there, sewers to separate clean water from waste. The discovery of germs, the invention of vaccines, smallpox, diphtheria, polio, and in 1928, Alexander Fleming's accident with mold gave us penicillin, the dawn of antibiotics.
The results were staggering. By 1900, life expectancy in industrialized countries had risen to around 47 years. By 1950, 68. Today, in many places, it's over 80.
And alongside this health revolution came an unprecedented population boom. In just 2 centuries, we didn't just double the global population, we multiplied it by 8. from about 1 billion in 1800 to over 8 billion today.
Which means we became a planetary force. Turning forests into farmland, rivers into sewers, the atmosphere into a chemical record of our ambition. Every breath you take today contains molecules of carbon once exhaled by a Victorian steam engine.
We lifted hundreds of millions out of poverty, built vast infrastructures, connected the world through rail, wire, and signal. But we also created new forms of poverty: isolation, resource addiction, and spiritual malaise.
So life expectancy went up, but so did loneliness. Cities grew, but nature was pushed to the margins. We gained power, but lost for many a clear sense of why.
And here's where Wengrow's insight comes back. Just as earlier societies experimented with farming without kings or cities without rulers, the Industrial Revolution was also an experiment. It offered abundance, but not direction, power, but not necessarily purpose.
So the question is, no longer can we grow, but what kind of growth we choose.
Because when expansion becomes directionless, when abundance has no anchor, we may find ourselves echoing a much smaller, stranger world.
To understand what happens when growth loses purpose, we turn now to an experiment with mice.
In the 1960s, an ethologist named John B. Calhoun set out to build a utopia, not for humans, but for mice. He called it Universe 25.
A utopia? For mice?
Yes, it was a sealed, sterile enclosure, clean, controlled, abundant. Food and water delivered endlessly. No predators, no disease, 4 levels of luxury, tunnels, nesting boxes, a rodent Eden.
So with no threats, no scarcity, they should have thrived forever.
That was the idea. He began with just 8 mice, and for a time they flourished. Births soared. 8 became hundreds, then thousands. A paradise overflowing with life, until it wasn't.
Something shifted?
Yes, order gave way to chaos. Dominant males turned hyper-aggressive, attacking without cause. Weaker males retreated into silence and fear. Females, stressed and overstimulated, abandoned their young. Some refused to nest at all. Infanticide spread. Then came the final generation. Mice that refused to engage at all. They didn't fight. They didn't mate. They groomed themselves obsessively, sometimes for hours a day. They lived apart on the upper ledges. Clean, untouched, passive. Calhoun called them the beautiful ones.
Physically flawless, no scars, no missing fur. But empty. No relationships, no purpose, and eventually no future.
By day 600, the growth stopped. By day 920, the last mouse was born. Despite endless abundance, the colony died. Universe 25 collapsed, not from hunger, but from within.
That must have shaken him.
It did. Calhoun realized he hadn't just built a mouse utopia, he'd built a mirror. When he spoke, he didn't speak of rodents. He spoke of cities, of overcrowding and alienation, of what happens when living beings are given everything except meaning.
And he gave it a name.
Yes, behavioral sink. A collapse born not of scarcity, but of overstimulation. Too much crowding, too little purpose. Too many strangers, too few roles to play.
The experiment has been debated, of course, criticized, reinterpreted, but the image endures because it feels less like science fiction and more like prophecy.
Humans are not mice. We have language, art, memory, culture. But in our megacities, we live among millions and know no one. We scroll through thousands of faces and rarely meet a gaze. We drown in abundance, yet starve for belonging.
And paradoxically, those patterns appear strongest, where life seems most comfortable, in the places with the highest living standards. Anxiety, depression, loneliness, all rising.
We've built abundance without community, speed without direction, shelter without story.
So the lesson isn't to reject cities or technology, but to ask what kind of human world we're building.
Because when growth loses its center, when purpose detaches from place, when structure dissolves into stimulation, we drift. Even the beautiful ones, untouched by violence, untouched by need, forgot how to live.
So the question isn't, can we provide more? But can we remember what we're here for?
Because the challenge was never survival, it was consciousness. Are we expanding or evolving?
We are 8 billion strong. Descendants of wanderers. Builders of cities. Makers of machines and myths.
There were the dreams.
We have crossed oceans, split atoms, mapped genomes, and stared into the dark. And yet, something feels fragile.
Not because we lack intelligence, not because we lack technology, but because after all this time, we have not yet learned to act as one.
For hundreds of millennia, our story was expansion. Across continents, across oceans, across ideas. But the next chapter will not be written in miles. It will be written in meaning. Not expansion, but integration. Not conquest, but connection.
Once we moved because we needed food. Then we settled to grow it. We built machines to multiply it. But now, we must remember why we were moving in the first place. Because this is not just a story about numbers. It is a story about direction. What kind of humanity are we becoming? One obsessed with endless consumption, endless growth, endless distraction, or one that begins to adapt, to seek balance, not just dominance. To choose belonging, not just comfort. To rediscover meaning, not in more, but in enough.
And maybe most of all, to remember, there is no them. There is only us. There is only one species of humanity, one family. And if we fight each other, we are only wounding ourselves across every border, every language, every belief system.
And the science confirms what the poets always intuited. You are likely no more than 50th cousin to any other person alive today. Every human being shares 99.9% of the same DNA. Our differences are echoes of climate, geography, and culture. But at the deepest level, we are kin.
8 billion cousins, still learning how to live together in one fragile home. All is one.
Next time, we step into the tension that defines our age, between the dream of utopia and the hard edge of realpolitik, between hope and power, between the systems we have built and the ones we urgently need. Because how we manage population, migration, and resources is no longer just policy. It is survival. So until then, keep your lantern lit. Remember the long road we've walked. And remember, every face, every child, every stranger is part of you. All is one.
One last thought. Dinosaurs walked this planet for more than 160 million years. They adapted, flourished, and disappeared long before anyone could remember them. Homo sapiens have been here for roughly 300,000. We are not the end of the story. We are barely at the beginning. In that brief time, we've learned to store knowledge outside our bodies, to carry ideas across generations, to send machines beyond our world and use distant light to glimpse the deeper structure of the universe, to build systems that shape billions of lives, and now to reshape the climate of an entire planet. Power like that usually arrives after wisdom, not before it. The journey you've just watched isn't about fear or blame. It's about learning to see ourselves clearly, in time, in scale, and in relation to one another. Understanding doesn't come from a single answer. It emerges when many pieces are held together. And if we can learn to think that way, across chapters, across centuries, then perhaps this very early moment in our story can still grow into something worthy of the time we've been given. All is one.